D, wait for it, delightful.
Check out the name tag. You're in my world now, Grandma.
What's up, nerds? So if you're watching this, this is going to be my review for Thor Love and Thunder, which, I mean, like, in all honesty, it's like, I don't know, man. It's like I've seen a bunch of people being all like, you should go in with no expectation. It's like,
don't ask questions. Just consume product and then get excited for next product.
So I'm going to give you my thoughts and everything and all that jazz. But before I get started, I just want to say that if you like what I do here and you enjoy independent content here on YouTube, please consider subscribing to my channel. YouTube is always changing up their algorithm, and small channels like mine, we always get shoved to the back of the line. So please ask that you like, share, and subscribe, and I thank you in advance. So in saying that, I'm going to get started on my review for this. So I was planning on taking my children to see this movie, but after seeing the trailer, I saw that I decided not to, because there were some things in the movie that I didn't want my kids to see. For instance, naked Thor. Now, granted, you only see his tuchus, and it's a glorious tuchus at that. But I don't think that nudity is something that I want my children to see. Also, they do talk about orgies, and that's not a question that I am prepared to answer for my toddlers at the moment. So even though I was fine with it, I kind of just didn't feel like it was a movie that I should have taken my children, and I'm happy I didn't. I know that it might bother some of you, and you might be like, whatever, prude. But you have to think about this as Marvel movies. They've always said, like actors and directors and stuff like that, that these movies are for children, and some people on Twitter, they're all like, these movies are for kids, and you're all like, okay, but adults enjoy them too. I just think that when you have content like that, maybe you should some stuff should be left on the cutting room floor. And whatever. Now, in an interview, Taika Waititi said that there is more to this movie, and from what I've seen online, that they have whittled it down to 2 hours, and apparently there's a 4-hour cut, a Waititi cut. And they said that it also in an interview that it was a lot like Mighty Python. And if you remember, there was some set photos and a video of Jane Foster where she was being taken over by Mjolnir. I don't know if I'm saying that right, I don't even care. And she's getting all possessed and stuff and everything. And being turned into female Thor and everything. Well, that was obviously cut out of it, along with a bunch of other stuff. And I have to admit, I probably would have liked to have seen the Mighty Python version of this movie, because I like Mighty Python, and I think that those movies are really fun, and I personally enjoy them in that kind of humor. And also, I think that editing wise, this movie is just a complete failure. And I tweeted it out at I think I was like, right now I don't know who edited this, but it looks like that the same trailer house that edited the Suicide Squad movie edited this movie, because it's a little bit of a mess. It's just a mess editing wise, like the story structure and everything from the plot is all over structure wise, and the story and everything. And yeah, it's just a little bit of a mess. It's a little bit of a mess. So before I get, into some, talk about the characters and stuff, I want to talk about the source material from this, because they've adapted two pretty big story arcs, and everything. Now, I recently read both. That we have the Jane Foster as female Thor, or as the Mighty Thor storyline, and the Gore the God Butcher. Now, I recently reread both of these to prepare for this movie, and I have to just say right now, the Mighty Thor with Jane Foster, second time around, it's not good. It's not very good at all. I thought, when I first read it, I liked it. But I think it was, I liked it because I read it like week to week or month to month or whatever it was. I can't remember off the top of my head. I think it was week to week. And, but this one was just in one fell swoop. And I was like, it's kind of boring. It's not as good as I thought it was going to be. Because you have the Jane, the cancer storyline, which was very good. Because in the comic books, what happened was she thought that there always needed to be a Thor, because Thor had become unworthy and all that nonsense. But So she was like, we need a Thor. So she became Thor, but she had cancer. And the longer she was Thor, the longer the treatment didn't work for her cancer. So she was dying. You know, when she was Thor, she wasn't dying because she was Thor, and the Thor kept her alive. But as soon as she wasn't Thor, she was Jane Foster. She started dying and the treatment wasn't working. And the same thing, I think that's the same thing. Well, here it's not the same thing. Here it's just she's got stage 4 and there's no saving her kind of thing. Also, there's a storyline at the very, very beginning where Thor is trying to figure out who the new Thor is because he doesn't know it's Jane Foster at first. And he rules her out right away because she has cancer. At one point, he thinks it's this shield agent. I can't remember her name off the top of my head, but and he goes to the moon or whatnot. And but he does find out after that it's not her, it's Jane Foster. So then you have the Gore the God Butcher storyline, which I personally thought was fantastic. I thought it was really great, and I really liked it a lot. I think that this movie captured some things, but not enough for where it's in my opinion good enough and everything. For instance, that opening scene was pretty good with Gore the God Butcher. You know, out in the desert. It's not exactly like the comics and everything, but it's not bad. It's pretty good. I think that you know, and I think a lot of that is Christian Bale. I think he's a fantastic actor. But I think that that opening scene was good in relaying what they needed to without doing it exactly like the comic books. It does have a failure in capturing the mystery of who is killing all these gods. They touch on it a little bit in little snippets. There's like some like movie things and everything. Like for instance, you see these aliens hanging from chains or whatnot. They're like hanging by their necks or whatnot. And that's in the comic books. Those are the first gods that Thor finds. He finds these hanging gods. They're like these big giant ones or whatever. It's like this family or whatnot, because he goes to save some people and bring them rain. And he's like, where are your gods? I'm like, we haven't seen them in forever. So he goes to their like house or whatnot. They're like big giant castle. And he sees that they're all dead. And he's like, what's going on here? And then he goes to find out, you know, find other gods and everything. And that's where he goes to Omnipotent City and everything in this movie. But in the movie, he goes there to find, you know, to research all the other gods so he can go across the galaxy and find them. Hold on, I'm gonna take a sip of this coffee because I need it. But and that's how in the movie you see that big snow beast thing, and that's in the comic books also. That is like a direct panel from the comic books and everything. But in this one, the Omnipotent City is like this little hangout for the gods. They're just all hiding out there and everything and planning their big orgy. And I'm all like, you know, well, this isn't as good as it could have been, in my opinion. And that's where it fails, is there's like this mystery. Like he's going through trying to find out all these gods to see who's still alive so he can find this god, the Gore, the God Butcher, who he doesn't know who it is. I'll talk a little bit more about him when I get to the characters and everything. But I felt like that was also something from the source material that this movie really, I think missed out on, especially because it took two. Like I said, the Mighty Thor with Jane Foster wasn't that good, in my opinion, but a whole movie of that might have been better than adding these two together. I just didn't feel like it connected very well. Anyways, I thought this movie was funny at parts, but I think Taika Waititi takes the serious parts and ruins it with his comedy or a joke at the end of it. And I think that speaks to the lack of his maturity in his writing. I think that having those screaming goats, I hated those fucking goats. Those goats were the most annoying thing on the planet. I didn't like them in this movie, and they ruined a lot of stuff, in my opinion. You know, those screaming goats coming after such a serious moment was ridiculous. I think that when you're having these characters talk about cancer is such a serious topic, and then all of a sudden you have them run into like a planet like it's a 2D and everything, and then you hear those goats go, ah, it's just really ridiculous, you know. And I was like, you know, I was like, okay, you had a serious moment here that could have been touching and you ruined it because you want to get laughs, you know. Cancer, it's hilarious. I find out it's hilarious. It's so funny, that Cancer. I also don't like the new Asgard on Earth. I know they set this up in the like Ragnarok and in what was it, Infinity Wars or Endgame and everything. But and I know it happens in the comic books, but I think that for me personally, I just don't like it. I like having Asgard on its own little planet. I don't really like the whole but I get them making it into like a theme park, kind of like a Disney World and everything. I didn't like the whole capturing the kids storyline and then Thor giving them his powers. Like, if he can give his powers just willy-nilly to whoever, why didn't he do that with the Avengers in the past? It's just so weird and nonsensical, and I didn't get it, and I didn't like it, like that whole thing. All right, so now I want to talk about the characters and the actors that played them. Thor. I like Hemsworth as Thor. I think he knows how to play this character, mostly because he's been doing it forever. But in this movie, he just plays this dumb oof that I'm like, dude, this dumb oaf. And I'm just like, why does Thor have to be so dumb? Like, you know, I don't like it. Like, why can't he be a hero and everybody else be smart also? It's not like when you get into a group, you just pick the dumb person, you know. I mean, yeah, you have brains and brawn, but why does Thor, you know, if you look at these past movies, and I understand they're going with the comedy route, but why does he have to just be a dumb guy with big muscles? It's just I don't like it. And I love Ravager Thor. That was my favorite look for him. I just love that look with the leather jacket and everything. But yeah, I liked Thor. I like Hemsworth as Thor. I want him to keep going on as long as he wants to do it. Okay. So let's talk about Gore. Man, what a waste of a character. In the comic books, Gore is so menacing and so dangerous. I just didn't feel it throughout this entire movie. I mean, he looked like that nun from The Nun and everything, you know, with her yellow eyes and stuff. And he just had his little cloak on and everything. And I'm just like, he's not menacing. But that opening scene though was very good. It just goes to show how great of an actor Bale is, that he can sell such a performance with the death of his daughter to the meeting of a god, and yet to the failure of that god. I think the look of Gore could have been a little bit more comic books accurate. I know that Taika Waititi came out and said that he didn't want him to look like Voldemort, but I've seen renderings online of what Gore could have looked like. And he doesn't look like Voldemort, in my opinion, at all. I think he looks, you know, more comic book accurate, and he looks freaking awesome with those little Liku and everything. I also felt that it was a waste of the Necro sword. You know, I don't feel that. I do feel that it was a waste to give it to Hela in Thor Ragnarok. She did a good job with it. But seeing Gore in this movie, I really do feel like it would have been better in his hands. Because like also that attack on New Asgard was just ridiculous. I don't understand why Gore, you know, just all of a sudden just automatically transported to New Asgard as soon as he saw Thor. It was just weird. Like, he's just like, oh, look, Thor, I'm in New Asgard. I'm all like, what and everything. I'm all like, it's so weird. And he did have those shadow creatures fight for him, and those are from the comic books. He does have them, but I just feel like when it comes to Gore, they should have had him hunting down gods, and he didn't do that at all. Like, how cool would it be if he made it to Omnipotent City and just in the middle of that little thing and just started killing gods left and right, and then they would have had to run. And then he would have been like, I'm coming after you. It just would have been better, but they didn't do that. I mean, yeah, whatever. Anyways, Jane Foster as female Thor. So Jane dies, bummer and everything in this movie, which is kind of how it should have been. I felt like, you know, that storyline, you know, can only go on for this one movie because, I mean, they just wasted it anyways. So yeah, but at the same time, I don't know. I don't know what if they could have had that storyline go in another movie, but I don't feel that they could have. I did like the flashbacks where we saw Thor and Jane's relationship and how they slowly started to part ways. I thought that the cancer storyline was also done pretty well. I like that first part where with Darcy and everything. But her as Mighty Thor was not done well. Natalie Portman is not good when it comes to this role. I mean, she does a good job in stuff, and she does a good job as Jane Foster. I just don't think she does a good job as Jane Foster as Thor. And I really wish they wouldn't have not combined the storylines together, because I don't think that the mix went well, and I felt like they could have done more with the cancer storyline and all that stuff. I don't know. I just feel like it didn't work well. I did also like seeing her try to cure her own cancer, even though we've seen it plenty of times before in other movies and stuff. But I do like the whole scientist that won't accept their fate. And so therefore she kept constantly trying to cure herself. I liked that a lot and everything. But again, I don't think that Natalie Portman pulled off the Thor character as well. And that's just my opinion. Maybe you thought she did a good job as Thor, but I just thought she did a good job as Jane Foster, and that's it. All right, so Valkyrie is horrible in this movie. I think Tessa Thompson is not a good actress. I don't think she's a very good actress, like, at all, and everything. She has nothing to do, and I wish they would stop calling her Valkyrie, because I mean, she has a name, and I'm not quite sure what it is in the comic books off the top of my head, and I didn't look it up, and I didn't write it down and everything. But I think it's Broomhilda or some crap like that. I can't remember, or something like that. Anyways, I really feel like they should have given her a name.
We speak your names.
And then that way we could start up the Valkyries again and everything. Because now what are you going to call them? They're going to be like, look, the Valkyries. Hey, Valkyrie, you're Valkyries and everything. It was just like, whatever. And Jane Foster, maybe she could became a Valkyrie instead of, dying. But it's like, whatever. But in this instance, she just chewed up scenery the whole time. And the only reason that she was there was because she was sleeping with the director. So, I mean, yeah, that's pretty much it. Like, they could have left that character back on New Asgard and we would have been just fine. Zeus, now in my opinion, this character was straight up ridiculous, from his accent to his look. I mean, he had a little dainty curls and that little white skirt that he picked up when he was like walking and everything with and I personally just felt like this was such a removal from the comic books and the character that it's just so ridiculous. I mean, that accent was horrible also. I mean, you take such a strong male character in Greek mythology and you turn it into this little pussy boy who is just ridiculous and do this little fat old, clown man and everything. But yeah, and I mean, I'll talk about that a little later when I get down to the end credit scene. When I wish he would have died. I thought he had, but he hadn't, and I was bummed that he didn't. Okay, so Korg. Okay, Korg is fine in this movie, but at the same, I mean, and he had some good lines and stuff going on there. But I think that this was just a way for Taika Waititi to have a bigger role in his own movie. I do think it was interesting that all of his species are male and how they create children with the lava and the holding hands and everything. But I just felt like this character fell flat, especially when he just became a face. Like, I was just like, huh? What? Who? Yeah, it was just the Guardians of the Galaxy. They were barely in this movie, which was such a waste, but that's how it is. And yeah, it's not worth talking about because they just weren't barely in this movie. Sif, it was nice to see Sif back. Although I thought they had killed her off because the Russo brothers had said that she was snapped or whatever, but maybe she didn't get snapped. Or maybe she did and she just came back. I'm not quite sure what her path is, but I am happy that she's here and we're going forward with her character being in the MCU. and she can maybe be a love interest going forward for Thor, like she is in the comic books. And they had that movie way back in the day where they had a kid together, which kind of plays into the ending, which we're going to talk about now. I thought that it was a little weird that the whole goal for Gore was to get to eternity, and then just make a wish to kill all the gods. If that was his wish, I'm not quite sure what his wish was, but if that was his wish, I'm like, that's all his wish was just to kill all the gods and everything. I mean, I get it, and it is very, but it would have been cooler to see him kill all the gods. I mean, at one point in the comic books, he's like torturing. He like talks about how he tortured a god of torture, and he gave him what he wanted. He told him where his family was and everything. And I'm like, see, that's so good. He could have done that, and they could have, I don't know, man, they could have made this really, really good. And instead they let Taika Waititi make it into, a clown show. It was just the ending was just simplistic, and I wish that Taika Waititi would have thought a little bit more about what his main villain was doing. This was very generic. Now, after Gore dies from the Necro sword killing him, basically, and his daughter being brought back to life, because that's what with his wish and everything, and then Thor becoming her adopted father / uncle. I don't mind it, but it does bother me that they keep going back to this father-daughter trope. Now, as a father of a daughter, I love my daughter very much, but I just feel like we're constantly going back to the same things over and over again in movies. And we've seen this so many times that I just go, is this all that Marvel / Hollywood has? Just the daughter father trope. Like, I mean, it'll be interesting to see what Thor does with this. And in that, there was a movie, I can't remember, I think it was called The New Avengers or it wasn't called The Young Avengers. I think it was called Next Avengers and everything. And he does have a daughter there, but he leaves her on Earth and he goes back to Asgard. And maybe that would have been more interesting than this, but I mean, we'll see. Because I mean, what powers does the little girl have? That's another thing. I'm just like, but if this is the only thing that Hollywood / Marvel has is just going back to that father-daughter trope, then maybe they should just stop right now. Because I personally, it's just getting old. I mean, we've seen it in so many movies before. It's just it's got to stop. I mean, come on. Can we please? Now let's talk about the end credit scenes. So the end credit scenes were both fine, and I'll talk about my least favorite one first, and that was the Jane Foster going to Valhalla and seeing Heimdall. Now, it was nice to see Idris Elba again, but I really do hope that they don't bring these characters back. They died, they went to heaven per se, and I'll talk about that. I'll talk about something they can do, what's next and everything. But I'll talk about that in just a second after we talk about the second one. But if they don't want to do what I mentioned in the what's next for the Thor franchise, I do feel like they should they shouldn't bring these characters back. I mean, I like Idris Elba, and I don't mind Natalie Portman for that matter. But I think that they just really haven't had all that much to do in the cinematic universe, and therefore I go, they are not needed, going forward. Now, the end credit scene with Zeus surviving that thunderbolt straight to the chest. I don't understand that, but whatever. But it's fine. It's fine. And even though I didn't like Zeus, I like him being a villain, and I hope that he mans up for the next movie if he's in it. But he probably won't, because Taika Waititi is writing it, and he just wants him to be, funny and everything. But I really enjoy seeing Brett Goldstein as Hercules, and I always wondered how they would bring the Olympians and Hercules into the MCU, and I'm glad that they have brought them in, and that we'll get to see them, in an all-out brawl, Thor and Hercules. And because who doesn't love Brett Goldstein? I mean, talk about a bear with all his hair and stuff and his manly chest and everything and those muscles. But we'll see. We'll see what happens there. But if Zeus doesn't come back, I'm fine with that also. But Hercules, I do. Like I said, I like Brett Goldstein. So I did like seeing him as Hercules. It was a good choice. So now what's next for Thor in the MCU? That's very so it's very obvious that we're getting a father-daughter team up for what the next movie, which is fine, but like I said before, it's a trope that we've seen time and time again, and I personally am getting bored with this. It's what we got, so we just gotta go with it. But I would say, like I said before, if they're gonna bring back Heimdall and Jane Foster, you could also bring in Angela. Now, Angela was created for the Spawn universe. She was co-created by Seth MacFarlane, and there was some legal problems and everything. But now Angela is part of the MCU. Well, not a part of the MCU, but she's a part of Marvel. And she went to the realm of heaven where she lives with the angels, which pretty much are like Valkyrie and everything. But I think this would be a really good idea in the way of bringing that character into the MCU. But they kind of already did that with Hela in Thor Ragnarok. So I'm not quite sure what they would do there. Although she wasn't, she was kidnapped / captured by the angels, not banished to heaven, which they could just replace Valhalla with heaven. You know, Valhalla, it's its own realm, and the angels live there and everything. But you could bring Angela in. But I think that would be probably the best way to bring that character in if they did so. And then I think that would be also a way to bring back those two characters. That's just my thought. As far as the father-daughter team, I'm not quite sure what they could do with them, because this is kind of new territory as far as Thor having a daughter. Yeah. So in conclusion, Thor Love and Thunder is funny, but yet not witty, not a witty addition to the Thor storyline in the MCU overall. This might have been a fun side road in this universe, but I think maybe Taika Waititi should really think about the source material that he's adapting a little bit more thoroughly. And instead of being the fun, kooky guy going for laughs every 5 seconds, should maybe try to adapt a more serious tone to his projects, which I think we've seen before, for instance, in Jojo Rabbit. I thought that had some comedy, but also, dealt with a serious subject matter. And I think that he shows that he can do serious mixed in with a little bit of comedy. But I think a serious note going forward would be better. And I don't know, maybe Taika Waititi can do that, but I think that this movie did not do that. All right, you guys, that's my review for Thor Love and Thunder. Tell me, what did you guys think about this movie? Did you like it? Did you not like it? Who was your favorite character? Did you hate those goats as much as I hate those fucking goats? If those goats are in the next movie, I'm not watching it. Not watching it at all. I don't care. I don't care what they do. They could have my favorite Marvel character, Silver Surfer, in it, and I'm still not watching it. I'm not watching it because those goats were freaking annoying as shit. But yeah. All right. Tell me what you guys thought. Who was your favorite character, least favorite character, favorite moment, favorite line, all that good stuff. Tell me what you guys think. Go ahead and leave all your comments in that section down below. If you like this video, go and hit that like button. I won't mind. If you're new to my channel, please hit that subscribe button. I'd greatly appreciate it. And I will see you guys on my next movie review. You guys have a good day. Bye.